They'd been married for 5 years. Sophie and Marc, the couple everyone admired, solid as oak. Together they'd weathered storms. Those early cash-strapped days, shared dreams, the children that almost were. But for months now, Sophie had sensed the shift. Marc grew more absent, more distant. Late nights, vanished smiles. Then one evening, without warning, he walked in and slapped the divorce papers on the kitchen table. "It's over. I want a new life." His voice carried the chill of a courtroom verdict. "Keep the old car and the couch. Everything else stays with me." Sophie stood paralyzed, the air punched from her lungs. She'd given this man her youth, her sacrifices, her quiet nights waiting up with reheated dinners. And now he left her with furniture? A slideshow of abandonment played behind her eyes. Midnight clocks ticking through his unexplained absences. Anniversary flowers she'd bought herself for 3 years running. That damning phrase, "I want a new life." As if their life together had been some placeholder. The silence grew teeth. When she finally spoke, her voice trembled like a plucked wire. "Why, Marc? After everything, why now?" A shrug. "People change. You're not the woman I married." Tears magnified her vision as she stepped closer. "You're right. I'm not." Her fingers grazed the rejection papers. "I erased myself to build you up. Turned down the Paris promotion because you hated big cities. Did the bills while you chased your dreams." She laughed, a broken sound. "Funny how my change looks exactly like your selfishness." He examined the wall behind her left ear. "You want to know what really changed?" Sophie's voice hardened like cooling steel. "I stopped running after a man who'd already left." She pressed a palm to the divorce papers. "Rebuild your life all you want. But don't pretend mine wasn't the foundation you tore down." He said nothing, just left. Like that, without another word. As if 12 years together deserved nothing more than icy silence and a slamming door. That night, Sophie didn't sleep. She cried, yes, for hours. But she didn't scream, didn't beg. She simply let the grief flow, like freezing rain falling on parched earth. What did I do wrong? The question circled like a vulture. Was I too devoted? Too accommodating? Memories surfaced. Every time she'd noticed his distance but looked away. Every forced smile when he barely spoke to her. Every swallowed complaint to keep the peace. Betrayal crushed her chest. Yet beneath the pain, something stirred, a quiet voice whispering. He broke you, but he didn't destroy you. Days passed. Heavy. Silent. Sophie tried to understand. To accept. But something didn't add up. Marc wasn't just distant, he was already gone. Then one morning, she did the unthinkable. She searched his things. Shame burned her throat, but instinct screamed louder. His phone revealed everything. Hundreds of messages. Flirty texts. Midnight calls. Photos. A full-blown affair. Nearly a year. The passion he'd claimed to need? He'd found it in a 27-year-old beauty influencer. All pouty lips and admiring gaze. She called him my lion, my hero. He promised her trips, apartments, luxury. Sophie shattered. But this time, no silence. She screamed, sobbed, sent picture frames flying. Then she called him, demanding answers. "You betrayed me, Marc. You were living a double life while I fought for ours." A cold sigh. "Let's not make a scene. What's done is done. You're a good woman, Sophie. But I need something that reflects who I am now." And that's something he wanted? Fame, apparently. Marc had transformed. His YouTube coaching empire had catapulted him into the spotlight. TV appearances, sold-out conferences, sponsorships. The money rolled in. So much money. Suddenly, he saw himself as above it all. Above their past. Above Sophie. He hired sharks in suits, celebrity divorce attorneys who could gut a marriage in minutes. No negotiations. No compromises. He wanted everything. The house. Their assets. Even their shared memories. Sophie tried anyway. Went to counseling. Proposed mediation. Extended an olive branch. Clinging to some shred of decency she still believed existed between them. Marc's laugh cut like glass. "You think this is some rom-com reunion? Wake up, Sophie. We're done." The final betrayal came from his family, the same people she'd supported through their darkest days. His mother's call still burned. "Darling, Marc's somebody now. He needs a woman who matches his status. You need to let go." As if Sophie had never been enough. As if her sacrifices meant nothing. As if Marc's success hadn't been built on the backbone of her silent support. Alone. Abandoned by everyone. Yet she fought. No high-priced legal team, just raw truth and stubborn dignity. The signing day arrived. Sunshine mocked the storm inside her. In that sterile white room sat the man she'd loved for 12 years. Marc lounged like this was brunch, not bankruptcy of their marriage. His tailored suit probably cost more than her entire legal budget. His diamond-crusted watch glinted as his lawyer preened over the paperwork. No entourage for Sophie, just herself, and the quiet power of a woman who'd finally remembered her worth. The notary slid the papers between them. A heavy silence fell. Sophie picked up the pen, but before signing, she lifted her eyes. She held his gaze. Long, steady. Not a trace of hatred. Just the clear, piercing look of a woman who expects nothing more. Marc flinched first, unnerved by this unfamiliar calm. He'd expected tears, collapse. Instead, she stood radiant, silent, serene, whole. A deep breath. Then her pen moved. Her name, one last time beside his. This time, the ink spelled freedom. As she set down the pen, something miraculous happened. She smiled. Not the broken smile he'd grown accustomed to, but the bittersweet smile of closure. Of a woman who finally sees the full ledger. What she'd given, what she'd lost, and what she'd just reclaimed, herself. She stepped closer, her voice a quiet earthquake. I married you for love. Supported you for love. Gave everything, for us. A beat. Then the revelation. Losing you wasn't the hardest part. Losing myself in you was. Today, I'm found. And that's the real victory. No backward glance. No dramatic exit. Just a woman walking away with her soul intact. While the man who thought he'd won stood frozen, his chest suddenly hollow. Her unexpected strength echoing in the space. Where his heart used to be. The ink barely dry. Marc dove into his glittering new life. Dobby sunsets, rooftop champagne. Midnight stories, flashing yacht parties. Always the camera's perfect angle. And then there was her, the new woman. Always glued to his side. Young, sexy, radiant. Every post was a carefully crafted slap to Sophie's face. A selfie captioned, "Finally found the woman I deserve." A sunset shot with the quote, "Life truly begins when you surround yourself with the right people." His followers ate it up, congratulating him, envying his perfect life. None of them knew the wreckage he'd left behind. Meanwhile, Sophie was starting from zero. No home, no savings, just a suitcase, a handful of clothes, and a heart in fragments. She moved in with her mother, a quiet, gentle woman who asked no questions, just pulled her into a hug and led her to a freshly made bed. And there was her son, the one she'd had long before Marc. A watchful, intelligent teenager who said little but spoke volumes with his steady presence. He loved her, respected her, saw her. Strangely, in all this chaos, the absence of shared children with Marc didn't hurt as much as she'd expected. Maybe because he already had 2 kids from a past relationship. Maybe because they'd loved each other as adults, without building a family. Now, it almost felt like relief. No custody battles. No child support negotiations. No scheduling conflicts. Just her son, her anchor, the one love that had never wavered. It wasn't much, but it was everything. The first days were pitch black. The nights, endless. The mornings, thick with grief. But something in her refused to drown. She couldn't give up, not in front of her son, not in front of her mother. So every evening, after helping around the house, she'd retreat to her room, phone in hand, and type. How to trust again after divorce. Rebuilding yourself from nothing. Starting over when you've lost everything. Sophie discovered a new world, the realm of self-discovery. She immersed herself in motivational talks, stories from women who'd walked this painful path before her. Testimonies that whispered, "You're broken, but not beyond repair. This isn't the end, it's your rebirth." She began taking notes, organizing her thoughts. Then one day, a video title caught her eye. Asterisk, 50 euro businesses you can start from home today. Asterisk. Something sparked. Memories resurfaced. Long before Marc, there'd been a version of herself who created magic with her hands. The woman who'd sewn late into the night, crafting jewelry for friends, stitching fabric bags with intricate details. Rummaging through her mother's attic boxes, she uncovered relics of that forgotten self. A vintage sewing machine, a pouch of leftover beads, fabrics yellowed with time, but still beautiful. That afternoon, she tried, just to see. A zippered pouch first, then a keychain. She photographed them, posted timidly on Facebook, half expecting silence. Instead, comments bloomed. These are stunning. Do you take orders? Could you make one with my daughter's name? She had nothing. Yet she had everything. Talent rediscovered, no longer dimmed by a man's shadow. This time, she wasn't reflecting someone else's light. She was becoming the source. Orders trickled in, then flowed. Unique clutches, hand-stitched totes, jewelry carrying whispered affirmations in their packaging. You're stronger than you think, inked in her careful script. Soon, women weren't just buying products. They were coming for the quiet strength Sophie radiated. When a friend urged her to start a YouTube channel, she hesitated, then shared her creative process, upcycling old scarves into wallets. Business tips, pricing handmade goods fairly. Fragments of her story, never naming Marc, but speaking truths any wounded heart would recognize. The algorithm loved her. Views soared. Messages poured in. You gave me courage to leave my toxic marriage. I launched my bakery after watching your videos. Then came the game-changing order. Custom pouches for a prestigious consulting firm. The delivery brought her face-to-face with Gabriel, 40-ish, sharply dressed, eyes that held both warmth and keen intelligence. You've got gold in your hands, he remarked, turning a floral pouch in his fingers. And unless I'm mistaken, in your heart too. Sophie flushed. It had been years since a man looked at her without pity or agenda. Their conversation, about art born from pain, about second acts, lasted only 15 minutes. When he asked her for coffee, she declined politely. Yet as she turned to leave, his voice followed. When you design a men's collection, I volunteer as your first model. This time, her smile came unbidden, not performative, not guarded. Just real. What began as a business transaction would become a second coffee, she said yes. Then dinner. Then countless shared silences that spoke louder than words. Sophie and Gabriel grew closer effortlessly. He never pressed her with probing questions or dug into her past. Instead, he saw her exactly as she was now, strong yet fragile, wildly creative, finally free. With him, she laughed, really laughed. She breathed easier. No explanations needed. No justifications. And within a month, they were together. Not superficially, but deeply. Then one morning, after days of unusual fatigue, she found herself at the pharmacy almost automatically, buying a test she barely believed in, until two pink lines made her hands shake. Pregnant. She sat motionless, one hand cradling her still flat stomach, the other gripping the test. No tears. No outburst. Just a slow, wondering smile. The kind reserved for women who'd stopped daring to hope for miracles. Gabriel's reaction sealed everything. A beat of stunned silence. Then his hands clasped hers firmly. This baby is a gift. And I want all of it. Their life, your life. Every part. Days later, by a sunlit lake, he opened a velvet box. Marry me, Sophie. No grand promises. Just, let's build what others tried to destroy in you. She said yes. Not from need, but choice. Their intimate wedding, early in her pregnancy, glowed with unscripted joy. Her teenage son stood witness, quietly beaming at his mother's radiance, something he'd never seen before. Gabriel, the business strategist, helped Sophie scale her brand, professionalized her YouTube channel, designed a home studio, streamlined operations. Her influence exploded. Collaborations, speaking invites, a Most Inspiring Woman award. In every interview, her mantra resonated. I didn't succeed despite my past. I succeeded because of it. Meanwhile, Marc's nightly live streams grew hollow. The ritual never changed. Adjust the ring light. Flash his practiced smile. Seat his impeccably groomed girlfriend beside him. Spout empty platitudes about alpha mindset and cutting toxic ties. Until one fateful broadcast, when a comment sliced through the facade. Your ex-wife just won an inspiration award. Pregnant, thriving, and her brand's on fire. Marc's eyelid twitched. Who's Sophie? His girlfriend whispered. A microsecond pause. Then his tight-lipped smile. Ancient history. Someone who couldn't handle my success. But the audience had caught the crack in his armor. Comments flooded in. Her handmade bags are exquisite. She's everything you pretend to be, authentic. Funny how the upgrade turned out to be the downgrade. Marc's focus wavered for just a second, a hairline crack in his carefully constructed facade. He ended the live stream abruptly, without his usual closing remarks. That night, against his own rules, he did the unthinkable. He visited Sophie's profile. There she was, glowing. No filters, no pretense. Just Sophie in a simple linen dress, her belly gently rounded, smiling a smile that reached her eyes. Beside her, Gabriel's arm rested protectively around her shoulders, his gaze brimming with quiet devotion. Marc scrolled mechanically through the comments. You're proof that women rise from their ashes stronger. Your peace shines through every creation. Thank you for showing us how to rebuild. His gut twisted. Not jealousy, something worse. A yawning void where his certainty used to be. She'd flourished without him, built an empire in his absence. And most damning of all, she was loved in ways he'd never managed to love her. Meanwhile, Sophie's world expanded. An e-commerce site buzzing with orders. A tight-knit team of artisans. Online courses teaching women to rebuild from nothing. She carried their daughter lightly, her son already adoring the sister he'd yet to meet. When she found the old photo of her and Marc while sorting boxes, she simply traced its edges once before tucking it away. Thank you, she whispered to the ghost of their past. Without you, I'd never have found myself. Marc's downward spiral. Weeks later, Marc resumed his broadcasts, same polished setup, same hollow advice about toxic people. His girlfriend sat beside him, scrolling through her phone during his monologues. Then the question appeared. When are you two having kids? Marc's smile tightened. No rush. We're enjoying our freedom. He pivoted to another topic, but the words lodged in his brain. The truth? He thought about it constantly. A real family. Not like the children he barely saw from his first marriage. But his influencer girlfriend had other priorities. A baby would ruin our engagement metrics. He'd chased passion and found himself irrelevant in his own life. Sophie's rebirth. Miles away, Sophie brought new life into the world. The delivery room glowed softly as Gabriel cradled her hand, his steady voice anchoring her through each wave. Then, the first cry. Gabriel gathered their daughter with trembling reverence before placing her on Sophie's chest. She's here, Sophie breathed, tears of pure joy streaking her face. Perfect, Gabriel murmured, kissing her forehead. Like her mother, they had chosen to name her Nala, a name that meant gift from heaven. That evening, Sophie understood something deep inside her. Everything she thought she had lost had only been the path leading her to what she truly deserved. And while Sophie held her daughter in her arms, one hand resting gently on her forehead, a faint smile on her lips, Marc, on the other hand, stared at his ceiling. It was 2 a.m. His partner slept beside him, her story still open on her phone screen. And he couldn't sleep. He thought back to that follower's question. He thought of Sophie, and deep within himself, with no words, no sound, he knew he had it all, and lost everything. A few weeks later, a miracle happened. Or at least, that's what Marc believed. His partner told him she was pregnant. He went silent for 10 full seconds. Then he hugged her, laughing like a child. He kissed her, spun her around, danced in the living room. I'm going to be a dad again, he shouted, thrilled. She, glowing, recorded the whole scene. She already had the announcement in mind. Emotional montage, soft music, heartfelt voiceover. And quickly, social media went wild. A baby on the way. The fruit of true love. #gratitude. A king's heir is on the way. What some thought they could deny me, God gave me. Real ones know. Thousands of likes. Stories, reels, emotional live streams. And of course, a few subtle digs, without naming Sophie. Some things you wait for in vain. Others come when you're with the right person. God's timing is perfect, but Sophie didn't react. She didn't even follow Marc anymore. She simply rocked her daughter while listening to soft music. Her world had no more room for the shadows of the past. Marc, however, was overflowing with joy. He decided to celebrate the news with his friends. He booked a dinner at the fancy downtown restaurant, his usual place to be seen. That night, he was glowing. Crisp white shirt, designer glasses, confident smile. Once everyone was served, he raised his glass and announced, "Gentlemen, I'm going to be a father. Again. But this time, with the woman who was meant for me." Applause. Cheers. Laughter. But something felt off. His best friend, Kareem, the one he'd known since university, didn't react like the others. He smiled yes. But briefly, flatly, somewhat frozen. Seriously? Wow. That's a surprise, he said, just a little too slowly. Marc raised an eyebrow, but said nothing. He brushed it off as an emotional moment. But a few minutes later, as the meal continued, another friend, Malik, who loved juicy stories, spoke up. You guys know what? There's this dude I know. He was expecting a baby with his wife. Man was over the moon. Thought it was the best gift of his life. Marc looked up, amused. And so, the baby's born, everyone's celebrating and all. But a few weeks in, the guy starts noticing the kid has a weird nose. A weird chin. Laughter around the table. The kid didn't look like him. Like, not even a little bit. But guess who he did look like? Malik paused. He glanced over at Kareem. Then at Marc. And there it was, a sly, knowing smile. The baby looked exactly like his best friend. Silence. One of the guys stifled a laugh. Another looked away, clearly uncomfortable. Marc, meanwhile, felt a cold bead of sweat trickle down his back. He forced a laugh. But what does that have to do with me? Malik shrugged, feigning innocence. Nothing, of course. Just a story. But hey, life is full of surprises, right? Then he slowly finished his drink, eyes locked on Marc. With that look, the look of someone who knows something. Marc looked away. He tried to steer the conversation elsewhere. But that night, laughter didn't come as easily anymore. Since that fateful dinner, something hadn't let Marc rest. The glances, the smirks, the messages his partner typed and deleted when he was near, the repeated excuses for going out alone. And most of all, Kareem. His strange behavior, sudden absences, the way he avoided certain topics since the pregnancy announcement. Marc remembered. It was him who pushed them to connect. He had introduced them, encouraged them. One night, while his partner was asleep, Marc picked up her phone. He hesitated. For a long time. But curiosity, fear, and a burning rage got the better of him. He unlocked the screen. What he found was beyond his worst fears. Messages, photos, voice notes. She and Kareem. For months. Explicit, tender, passionate exchanges. Secret meetups. Promises. I love you, S. And then, the worst. I can't believe I'm carrying your baby, Kareem. It drives me crazy having to pretend it's Marc's. Don't worry, my lioness. He won't suspect a thing. He's too busy playing life coach. Marc felt the blood drain from his face. He dropped the phone, stood up. His head was spinning. He stormed into the bedroom like a tornado. Wake up. She jolted up, eyes wide. What? What's going on? Don't play innocent. You think I'm blind? You think I don't see what's happening? She sat up, already defensive. What are you talking about? He shoved the phone in her face. Kareem. It's him, isn't it? He's the father. She leaned back slightly, hands instinctively on her belly, voice trembling. Marc, calm down. You're going too far. But he was shouting, completely out of control. You betrayed me. You both did. My best friend. And you. My child. Not even mine. She tried to leave the room. He grabbed her arm. Not violently, but firmly. She struggled, frightened. Then, an idea. Instinctive. Defensive. She grabbed her own phone. And went live. The camera opened on her. Disheveled. Tearful. Gasping for breath. She stepped back, facing the screen, her face front and center. If you're seeing me right now, it means I'm in danger. I'm pregnant, and the father of this baby is furious. If anything happens to me, know that Marc M. is responsible. Yes, Marc, the coach, the mentor, the so-called man of values. Marc froze. Turn that off. Are you kidding me? But she was already live. Hundreds of people had joined in a matter of seconds. She stood there, facing the camera, playing on her breathing, her tears, and her clearly visible baby bump. He threatened me. He screamed at me. And I won't stay silent. I'm not a quiet victim. Marc tried to grab the phone from her hand. But she backed up, pressing herself against the wall, and screamed. If you touch me, you'll expose yourself to the whole world. Look, they're already watching. Marc's eyes met the screen. Comments were flying by at lightning speed. What? Marc, the toxic coach. Unbelievable. Yelling at a pregnant woman. We knew he was shady. This guy is dangerous. And in that moment, Marc understood. He had just lost everything. His credibility. His image. His status as a leader. Everything. The live was watched over 2.3 million times in under 24 hours. A record. But not the one Marc ever dreamed of. The next morning, hashtags exploded across every social platform. Hashtag toxic coach. Hashtag Marc exposed. Hashtag fake mentor revealed. Hashtag not the father. Clips of the live were everywhere. People saw him shouting, out of control. They saw his pregnant partner, curled up in tears, holding her camera with a trembling hand. The comments under his old videos came like a storm. Coach of what exactly? Lesson number 1. Don't get played by your best friend. This guy can't even manage his own life, and he wants to manage ours. When you give relationship advice but aren't even the father of your own baby. One subscriber even posted a long thread on X, formerly Twitter, analyzing all the inconsistencies, pregnancy dates, old lives, subtle comments from Kareem, stolen glances. He ended coldly. The child isn't Marc's, and he doesn't know it yet. Or maybe he's pretending. Sad fate for a man who wanted to be a role model. Influencers got involved. Some who had previously collaborated with Marc deleted all traces of partnership. Brands suspended contracts, pending further clarification. A famous talk show host posted on her account, "I always knew that smile was fake. The coaching world is rotting from the inside." And Kareem, his brother, his right hand, he stayed silent. Not a single word. No denial. No defense. He disabled comments on all his accounts, set his stories to private. But it was too late. Screenshots had already been taken, old messages uncovered, suspicious likes, and even subtle photos of him standing too close to Marc's wife. The truth shattered into 1,000 pieces. Marc, meanwhile, broke down live. He tried to go live alone. His face was drawn, his eyes darting. "I'm not perfect, okay? But I'm just a man like any other. You don't know everything. There's been manipulation behind what was shown." But the comments were merciless. "Own it, Marc. You're not the father. Funny how calm you are now, huh? That's karma. And it's pregnant. Zero coach, zero husband, zero friend. Who even listens to this guy anymore?" His partner didn't say anything either. She simply removed her in a relationship status from her profile and posted a photo of herself alone, facing a mirror, captioned, "Alone but strong." And once again, the comments exploded. Half supported her. The other half accused her of having planned everything from the start. Marc lost everything. His partnerships, his income, his followers, his image. He deactivated all his social media for several days. But the memes kept circulating. A photo of him in a suit with the caption, "Personal coach, but not the official dad." Another one with his old quote crossed out, "Take back control of your life." Replaced with, "Lose control of your home." And while all this was exploding, Sophie was living a peaceful life. A photo posted on her business page showed her sewing a little pink backpack, Nala beside her, and Gabriel painting a shelf behind them. No drama, no scandals, no glitter, just peace, real peace. And as she randomly read a comment about Marc's downfall, she smiled gently. Not out of mockery, not out of revenge, just a quiet thought. What life takes from you sometimes is just to show you what you'd never have found if you had stayed. That evening, the wind blew softly. Marc sat alone on a bench, in a small park on the edge of the city, sunglasses on, hoodie up. He didn't want to be recognized. But truthfully, no one was watching anymore. Since the scandal, his life had become nothing but a long stretch of silences. Silence from brands. Silence from old friends. Silence from the woman who had carried what he thought was his child, but was actually his best friend's. He no longer had a home of his own. He was renting a small furnished studio on the outskirts of town. He'd tried to return to social media, but every post brought the same tidal wave. "Go take care of your imaginary kids. A coach with no future." So he gave up. That night, Marc thought about everything, especially about Sophie. He had briefly seen her in a YouTube video that a follower had reposted. She didn't even mention him. She was laughing, surrounded by her handmade creations, loyal followers, Gabriel, and her little girl in her arms. And that did something to him. A strange sting. Bitter. Lingering. She got into a new relationship and got pregnant just like that. He also thought about his own kids, those from his youth. He barely saw them anymore. One had moved abroad. The other had cut ties. And then a doubt crept in. Slowly. Venomously. What if? He remembered a comment from a doctor a few years ago during a routine checkup. "Your sperm motility is a little low, but it's nothing serious." At the time, he had brushed it off without a second thought. But today he needed answers. Hospital. Andrology center. White coat. Waiting room. the sound of plastic chairs shifting. Marc stared at the floor, arms crossed. When the doctor returned with the results, he looked at him with a certain compassion. "Mr. Marc, I'll be direct. Your test results are clear. You suffer from non-obstructive azoospermia. That means your body no longer produces sperm." Marc froze, speechless. The doctor continued, gently. "This condition can develop with age, or sometimes be present from birth without being detected. Have you ever had children?" He opened his mouth, then closed it. Had he ever had children? He thought of the first two, the ones he had always quietly doubted but never admitted to. And of the baby, the one he thought he was having with his most recent partner. None of them truly looked like him. He stood up. Without a word, he walked out. Outside, the air was cold, sharp. Marc walked for a long time, aimlessly. Heavy steps, his mind full of memories. Sophie asking him one day, "Do you want children, Marc?" And him replying, "Someday, when the time is right." And she had gotten pregnant naturally, without treatment, without calculation. A shiver ran through him. What if he had never been the one holding them back? What if Sophie was never infertile? He finally understood that the lie he had built, of strength, of control, of mastery, was only a facade to cover his own fragility. The only child he could have ever had was the child of a genuine love, built on respect and patience. But he had ruined everything. And now, there was nothing left. Just him. And the void. He looked up at the sky, eyes wet, for the first time without anger. Just one question, dull and aching. Why? But the wind gave no answer. Because some answers never come, or arrive too late. That night, Marc went back home, to an empty apartment, where the echo of his footsteps sounded louder than ever. He sat on his couch, alone, in front of his old computer. Once, he used it to go live with that fake smile, that confident voice. Today, he stared at the black screen. And for the first time, he had nothing to say. He opened an old folder. He came across a photo. Sophie, one autumn day. She wore a beige sweater, a blue scarf, a shy smile. That was the time when she still loved him, without question. He could have been happy. He could have been real. But he confused everything. He mistook loyalty for weakness, patience for dependence, silence for insignificance. He thought that because she didn't shout, she didn't hurt. He believed he would always find better somewhere else. And when he lost her, he never found himself again. There are mistakes you can fix, and others you just have to carry. I betrayed a woman who loved me unconditionally. I broke a home to chase a castle made of sand. And today, I realize luxury without loyalty is just empty space nicely decorated. I thought success was views, followers, trips. But true success was coming home and knowing your love for who you are, not what you show. To anyone listening, never look down on the one who loves you in silence. Because it's often in that silence that the deepest love hides. And sometimes, when you finally understand that, it's already too late. What you take for granted today might be everything you'll miss tomorrow.